This is a pair of Adidas sneakers. They look ordinary, Western, maybe even stylish. But in the Soviet Union, owning these stripes was anything but simple. In a country where Western brands were banned, where even jeans were considered dangerous, these shoes became a black market obsession. Athletes wore them, along with members of organized groups, and Spetsnaz, the Soviet Union's most elite soldiers. The shoes arrived through various channels, some through Olympic partnerships, others through underground manufacturing in Soviet facilities. However they got there, these sneakers became a symbol of rebellion, of power, of status in a crumbling empire. This is the story of how a Western sports brand infiltrated the Iron Curtain and became the unofficial uniform of the Soviet underworld. In the 1970s, the Soviet Union was preparing to host the 1980 Summer Olympics in Moscow, and while the USSR projected an image of ideological self-reliance and anti-Western sentiment, it had a problem. Its domestically produced sportswear lagged far behind Western standards, so the solution came from an unexpected place: West Germany. This is where Adidas enters the story, a Western brand known for its world-class athletic gear. Soviet officials struck a behind-the-scenes deal with the company to provide uniforms and sneakers for the USSR's Olympic team. However, there was a catch. Soviet ideology would not permit open Western branding on official gear. To circumvent this, Adidas agreed to modify their signature three-stripe design, replacing it with two, or using subtly altered variations that wouldn't raise political eyebrows. Ironically, despite the lack of logos, Soviet athletes competed in Adidas gear that was unmistakably Western, and this partnership established the foundation for Adidas's unexpected influence on Soviet military culture. What began as a compromise for Olympic aesthetics quietly evolved into a phenomenon that would shape fashion, identity, and warfare in the Soviet bloc. Olympic archives and historical documents reveal that Soviet authorities requested Adidas to minimize their logo visibility during televised events, concerned it might appear as an endorsement of Western capitalism. As part of the Olympic deal, Adidas authorized local production in the Soviet Union. One of the most iconic results of this collaboration was the Moskva trainer, a near replica of Adidas's München model. Manufactured in Moscow, these sneakers maintained the distinctive Adidas appearance and quality while featuring modified branding, displaying the word sports on the side instead of the traditional trefoil logo. Initially distributed to athletes, these shoes quickly caught the attention of the military. The Soviet Army, especially the special forces units known as Spetsnaz, found the lightweight shoes ideal for field use, especially in the rugged terrain of Afghanistan during the Soviet-Afghan War. Unlike the heavy, rigid boots issued by the Red Army, the Moskva trainers offered superior flexibility, breathability, and enhanced mobility for soldiers operating in challenging terrain and combat situations. Veterans of the Afghan conflict often recall how the trainers gave them a tactical advantage. They were easier to run in, less prone to causing blisters, and made less noise during stealth operations. For these reasons, the Moskva sneaker quietly became part of the Spetsnaz's unofficial uniform. The connection between Spetsnaz and Adidas gear grew stronger during the 1980s and 1990s. Historical photos and veteran testimonies show Adidas-style footwear remained popular throughout various military operations, from Afghanistan through later regional conflicts. As the Soviet Union dissolved in 1991, Adidas gear took on new meaning. With the collapse of central control, a massive black market emerged, fueled by goods that were previously hard to obtain. Adidas tracksuits, once reserved for athletes and elite units, now flooded post-Soviet streets. Enter the Gopnik, a cultural archetype that emerged in post-Soviet society. This figure, typically a young working-class male often seen squatting in public spaces, wearing a striped Adidas tracksuit, became a recognizable part of post-Soviet street culture. The look represented defiance, survival, and a complex form of nostalgia for Soviet discipline and order. For many people, the tracksuit became a way to express their identity. It was practical, instantly recognizable, and represented a form of cultural rebellion against the old system. Underground groups also embraced this distinctive style. In certain social circles, the tracksuit became a status symbol. Owning authentic Adidas gear meant you had connections or resources. Ironically, a brand once associated with Western capitalism became a core piece of post-Soviet cultural identity. Designers like Gosha Rubchinskiy, a Russian fashion designer with international recognition, reimagined Adidas gear in high fashion. His collaborations featured Soviet-inspired imagery, Cyrillic lettering, and the ever-present stripes, all reinterpreted for the runway. In 2018, Adidas released a controversial line inspired by 1980s Soviet aesthetics. It was pulled from some Western markets after backlash, but sold out instantly in Russia. Today, Adidas remains one of the most recognizable brands in Russia and other former Soviet republics. What began as an Olympic partnership has evolved into a lasting cultural phenomenon. Adidas may not have intended to become part of Soviet history, but through necessity, symbolism, and cultural adaptation, it achieved something remarkable.